It's a wild day of NASCAR news. Ty Dillon has landed a ride for the start of the 2021 season, and Tony Stewart wanted to run the Busch Clash, but NASCAR would not return his calls. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. We have a lot to talk about today, and I have a feeling as we get closer to the start of the 2021 season, business is only going to pick up even more, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you do not miss any NASCAR news, rumors, predictions as well. We do it all here at Out of the Groove, so make sure you're subscribed right now so you do not miss a thing leading up to the 2021 NASCAR Cup season. Today is a big day. Some drivers landing full-time Cup rides, other very competitive drivers landing Daytona 500 opportunities. NASCAR announces penalties for Taylor Gray after Snapchatting and driving at Daytona the other day. And we're also going to talk about an Associated Press interview with Tony Stewart that was released yesterday that shed a lot of light on the behind-the-scenes dealings of how Eldora ended up off the NASCAR truck schedule, and also gave Stewart a platform to condemn what he calls poor communication between him and NASCAR in recent months. We'll get to that at the end of this episode, but we're going to burn through all these other news stories first and foremost. We'll start with this. After months of near-perfect silence, Ty Dillon has a ride for the season-opening Daytona 500. Gaunt Brothers Racing announced today that Dillon will drive the number 96 Toyota with sponsorship from Bass Pro Shops and Black Rifle Coffee. Gaunt Brothers Racing does not have a charter, so Ty Dillon will be trying to race his way into the main event. Ty Dillon has been looking for a Cup Series ride all offseason ever since his old team Germain Racing shut down at the end of 2020. Up until the last week, there were absolutely no rumors, no discussions really of any kind about Ty Dillon's future, but now he's landed with Gaunt Brothers. It's unclear at this point if they're going to try and run all the races, if this is a part-time deal, what races they may select and try to race this year. Specifically, Gaunt Brothers is hoping to run other super speedway races this year and perhaps other road courses with Ty Dillon as their driver, but there's still a lot that needs to be finalized there. It's going to start with the Daytona 500, of course, the sport's biggest race. There's also some rumors, I've seen Bob Pockris reporting, that Ty Dillon might actually drive for 2311 Racing in the Busch Clash. We'll talk more about Busch Clash eligibility later on, but Bubba Wallace, 2311 Racing's current driver, does not qualify for the event at this time. So there's rumors at least that Ty Dillon, who won a stage in 2020, because yes, stage winners qualify, he might get the nod to drive the 23 car on the Daytona road course for the Busch Clash. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Very exciting. Ty Dillon fans, he's going to drive something in 2021. It does not look like a great full-time opportunity, but given where his career has gone at this point, this might have been the best he could have hoped for. Let's keep talking Daytona 500. Jamie McMurray is back. He will race in the Daytona 500 for Spire Motorsports in a Chip Ganassi Racing prepared car. They've done this the last couple years. Last year they did it with Ross Chastain, but McMurray will drive the 77 for Spire, but Advent Health will be the sponsor and a lot of the equipment will come from Chip Ganassi. This will be Jamie McMurray's first Cup Series race since the Daytona 500 in 2019. He was caught up in a wreck and finished 22nd in that one, and at the time he said that would likely be his last NASCAR race. Since then he's been with Fox as an analyst and has been one of my favorite analysts actually ever since then. He's staying with Fox this season with the exception of the Daytona 500. Now Spire does own a charter for that 77 car, so McMurray is locked into the field. He will not have to race his way in through the dual races, so good luck to Jamie McMurray. That's a competitive car. I mean, Ross Chastain in that same car last year, it was a Spire entry fielded by Ganassi. Remember, Chastain was like in the top 5 going for the lead late in that race when he kind of started a big wreck. So we'll see if McMurray has a chance to win this thing, and he's the 2010 winner of the Daytona 500. I wouldn't count him out. Just this week, Rick Ware Racing has now signed 2 full-time drivers for their Cup Series team this year. Cody Ware signed on to drive the 51 car full-time next year. A lot of people were talking about that. Today, Josh Bilicki announced that he has signed with the team full-time. He will drive the 52 car this year. Very exciting for those 2 young drivers. I don't know much about Cody Ware, to be honest. I know he's running the Rolex 24 later this month. I like Josh Bilicki a lot. Obviously, Rick Ware Racing is not looking to be competitive in 2021. They're still playing the long game, making hopefully smart business decisions. I think Bilicki is a decent choice. We also know Joey Gase will run the Daytona 500 in the 53 car for them. Not sure if that's going to turn into a full-time deal or if that's just a part-time deal. We'll see. Hey y'all, future Eric just jumping in right here. As I was editing, news that Derek Cope, the 1990 winner of the Daytona 500, is going to return to the Great American Race. He's driving a Rick Ware entry. He'll be in the 15 car. That car has a charter, so he does not have to race his way in. Derek Cope, how old is he? He's like 62 years old, I believe. According to Jeff Gluck, he has not raced at a super speedway since 2006. I do think it's a little silly that he's locked into the show based off those credentials. He is a past winner. I'm not trying to say he cannot drive, but man, a 60-year-old who has not raced at a super speedway in a decade and a half, he's locked in. That is a flaw in the charter system, but hey, the Rick Ware cars, they got their charters. It's the way the system works. Good luck, Derek Cope. That's fun that he's in the race. I'm not upset he's in the race. I just think he should have to race his way in. Go Derek Cope. I'll be rooting for him. Good stuff for Rick Ware Racing and good stuff for the Daytona 500. That field continues to get bigger. Right now we're looking at least 44 or 45 cars on the entry list, and it could be more than that depending on some pending announcements, hopefully. Let's look past the Cup Series now for a moment. Hailie Deegan accidentally, perhaps, leaked yesterday that she will be driving the number 1 truck in 2021. She released some plugs for some new merch, and on some of the merch showed the number 1 and had people talking, and so DGR admit that yes, Hailie Deegan will be driving the number 1 this year. Of course, she made her 1 and so far only Truck Series start last year driving the 17. They're rebranding that to the 1, so we'll have 2 Monster Energy sponsored number 1 vehicles at the track each weekend, with Kurt Busch in the Cup Series, of course. And yes, that is the newly named DGR Racing, David Gilliland Racing. The Crosley has been taken away. It's just DGR now. A lot easier to say, less syllables, so I'm happy. Let's talk Taylor Gray. Yesterday's episode, I discussed a video from this past weekend of 15-year-old Taylor Gray filming himself while driving at speed at Daytona. That is, of course, against the rules. I don't know what he was thinking. NASCAR talked to him this past weekend and then today announced a penalty. He will be fined $1,000 and placed on probation throughout the rest of this year. I think it's a fair penalty. I mean, $1,000 isn't much for a professional athlete, but he's also 15 and he's in ARCA. Fines are usually weighted towards the overall purse money that each series gets. ARCA teams do not make much money compared to Cup or Xfinity or even trucks. So $1,000 is, I think, very fair. Put him on probation, let him know you can't do that. We'll be watching. If you're 15, you're still trying to make your name, you're still trying to earn your place in the lower NASCAR ranks. You can't be making just poor decisions like that, filming yourself while driving 180 miles. Don't do it. Just don't do it, guys. Come on. I think that's a fair penalty. We don't need to rake the kid over the coals any worse than that. I think he's learned his lesson. There's also some news today about a new Xfinity Series team apparently opening. I saw this report from Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal. Scott Borchetta's Big Machine Records company is starting its own NASCAR Xfinity Series team that will debut this upcoming season. The new outfit will be named the Big Machine Racing Team and have driver Jade Buford behind the wheel of its number 48 Chevrolet. It's not just Cup Series attracting new teams right now, it's the Xfinity Series as well. Another music-related team owner. This is just, a couple days after the news of Pitbull signing on with Trackhouse. Goodness. I'll admit I don't know much about Big Machine Records or anything like that, but any new teams in the Xfinity Series, even if they maybe take a while to get competitive, no idea if this team will have any sort of alliance or how this team's going to get off the ground, but still, I've been a little worried about the Xfinity Series in recent months. The number of competitive cars in that series seems to be less than that in the Truck and Cup Series. Any sort of new teams that might bring new sponsors, new resources, and might be able to team up with other powerhouse organizations if needed, I think that's good news as well. So wishing them the best of luck. Anyway, my goodness, I think we've caught up on all of the news. I want to spend the rest of this episode talking about an Associated Press story written by Jenna Fryer that was published yesterday and got a lot of people talking because it gave Tony Stewart a true platform to really air his grievances with NASCAR, with other people involved. We talked about Tony Stewart last week a little bit. There were a lot of rumors that, the SRX and NASCAR were at odds. NASCAR sees the SRX as a competitor, and the SRX was formed because they didn't like what NASCAR was doing. There's been a lot of rumors about that, and Tony Stewart explained last week in an interview with The Athletic that while NASCAR was at first not happy with Tony Stewart's new SRX series, they later came to understand it, and at least as far as Tony Stewart believes now, they are okay with it and believe that it's good for both motorsports, all motorsports really in general. But speaking to Jenna Fryer in this article yesterday, Tony Stewart talked a little bit about that, but he also talked about some other interesting things that had not been uncovered to this point. For one, in this interview, Tony Stewart wanted to make it extremely clear that it was his decision, not NASCAR's, to take Eldora off the Truck Series schedule. Tony Stewart is the owner of Eldora Speedway in Ohio. He says in the article he found out about the Bristol Dirt Race only 2 days before it was publicly announced. This is from the article. Incensed that not a single NASCAR executive had given him a heads up, he, Stewart, immediately told his staff to tear up the sanctioning agreement he'd yet to sign for the 2021 Truck Series race. That is a new detail, and it does, I think, in a lot of ways prove my theory from last week that Tony Stewart was reacting more out of anger and emotion, perhaps, when cutting ties with NASCAR and taking Eldora off the schedule. The article actually goes on. His staff looked through the numbers, and even though the trucks were profitable for the track, the race only ranked 4th on Eldora's events while requiring double the effort and sweat equity. So Tony Stewart takes a profitable event away from his track because he was angry with how NASCAR communicated. I understand it from both angles, really. I hope Tony Stewart knows what he's doing as a businessman. Of course, they highlight in the article there that, Eldora's, the truck race isn't the biggest event for this track. It takes a lot of effort. I mean, yes, we do still make money off of it, which we will now not make in 2021, but I'm sure they moved some numbers around. I'm sure they figured it out. I'm sure Tony Stewart knows what he's doing by pulling the Eldora off the Truck Series schedule, but it feels like a very emotional, vengeful action more than anything. But does he have a right to be frustrated? Well, this article talks about other examples recently of NASCAR not communicating with Tony Stewart to his liking. From the article, Tony Stewart added he was also ignored when he inquired about his eligibility for next month's exhibition Busch Clash on the road course at Daytona. Stewart said he absolutely wanted to run the race, but no one at NASCAR followed up with the 3-time champion. That is new information. Tony Stewart wanting to race in the Cup Series again, albeit an exhibition race, a one-off race, and NASCAR not even picking up the phone. That is surprising. I can understand Tony Stewart being frustrated. Now, that being said, NASCAR back in, I believe, November announced the eligibility requirements for this year's Busch Clash, because it changes a little bit almost every year. To qualify for the Busch Clash, you had to either be a 2020 pole winner, you had to be a past Clash winner who raced full-time in 2020, you had to be a past Daytona 500 winner who raced full-time in 2020, past Daytona 500 pole winners who raced full-time in 2020, or 2020 playoff drivers, race winners, or stage winners. Tony Stewart does not fit into any of those categories, therefore he would, per the rulebook that NASCAR set forth several months ago, would not be eligible for the Clash. So does Tony Stewart have a right to be angry here? I think he definitely has a right to be upset that NASCAR was not communicating with him. I mean, if Tony Stewart, one of the all-time greats of the sport, one of the icons of the most recent era of the sport, if he wants to race, if he wants to talk to NASCAR about getting back on the track at a speedway he could be competitive at. I mean, Tony Stewart, his final win in NASCAR was 2016, a road course. It was at Sonoma. He could be competitive in 2021 at the Daytona road course, where very few of these drivers have many laps under their belts. If Tony Stewart wants to race in NASCAR, again, NASCAR should be answering the phone and at least talking about possibilities, or at least explaining to him that they'd already set forth the eligibility requirements and they can't budge on that. Like, at least pick up the phone and talk to Tony Stewart. Tony's right about that. The communication should be better from NASCAR. But that being said, I can understand that from NASCAR's perspective, they had set the rules and Tony Stewart did not meet those requirements. So Tony Stewart wanting to race seems like he's trying to, get NASCAR to bend the rules in his favor. NASCAR may not like that. NASCAR and Tony Stewart, during his time in the Cup Series, had plenty of instances where they were at odds with one another. But hey, again, some good, juicy off-season drama being provided by Tony Stewart. I mean, what else is new? I think he has a right to be frustrated with the apparent lack of communication. Again, this is all just coming from Tony Stewart's side. We haven't heard NASCAR's side of the story. He has every right to be frustrated with, poor communication, especially just from a track owner's perspective. NASCAR should have been communicating with Eldora about the Bristol dirt race as a possibility. Tony's whole goal, and he's been public about this for years now, was to bring the NASCAR Cup Series to Eldora. And for NASCAR to kind of pull the rug out from under him without any sort of communication and bring the Cup Series to Bristol instead, Tony Stewart has every right to be upset about that and upset with the lack of communication. So I have no problem with him calling it out in this case. I feel for him in this respect. I can also say I'm realistic about it and say it was unlikely NASCAR was going to ever pick Eldora over Bristol, which seats over 100,000 fans and is already a staple on the Cup schedule. I mean, was it ever really that realistic that NASCAR was going to bring Cup to Eldora for a points race? And no, I don't think it really was. But at the same time, he's right. The communication from NASCAR should have been a lot better. But let me know what you guys think down in the description. Who do you side with? How do you feel about the possibility of Tony Stewart racing in the Busch Clash? It doesn't sound like it's going to happen, but it could have. He wanted to make it happen. How do you guys feel about that possibility? Let me know down in the comments below. We covered a lot in today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. I could not do this show without your tremendous support. If you're watching this and you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe as well so you don't miss any of the videos coming out over the next several weeks as we get you all set for the 2021 season and, of course, the Daytona 500. Thank you all for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.